Hello and welcome to the final video you will have to watch for music appreciation or jazz, pop, and rock. There's a lot of information to get through, so I'm just gonna get started. If you are in music appreciation, watch the first two sections. If you are in JPR, feel free to skip over the music appreciation section after the theory concepts. The timestamp on screen will take you to the start of your specific questions section. Alright, here we go with music theory concepts. Let's start with scale degrees and their official titles and the differences between some of them. Scale degrees are assigned numbers 1 through 7 based on their place within the scale being used. The correct symbol has the number with a caret over the number to indicate a scale degree is being discussed and not just a generic number. For the first scale degree, its corresponding title is the tonic. Above the tonic, for the second scale degree, is the supertonic. Mediant is third, subdominant is fourth, dominant is fifth. Submediant is sixth, and both subtonic and the leading tone apply to scale degree 7. Subtonic is a generic term for the 7th scale degree, but is generally used for notes a whole step below tonic. Leading tone has a strong tendency to resolve up to tonic and is a half step away. A leading tone is a specific type of subtonic. A handy way to remember this is to sing the Flintstones theme song like this. Tonic, supertonic, median, subdominant, dominant, submediant, leading tone, and then the tonic. Okay, on to generic and specific intervals. An interval is the distance between two notes. These can be harmonic or melodic intervals. Harmonic intervals are stacked on top of each other and sound at the same time, or in harmony with one another. Melodic intervals are located one after the other. Each of these types can also be spoken about generically or specifically. Generic intervals do not describe the quality of the intervals, but just their distance. For instance, this in generic terms is a sixth. Specific intervals can be accompanied by a handful of descriptive terms. Those terms are major, minor, perfect, augmented, and diminished. Major and minor intervals are exactly the same as you would find them in a major or minor scale. So if we travel from a C to an A natural, that is some form of sixth. As C major has no sharps or flats, this distance would be a major sixth when speaking specifically. Likewise, if we travel from F to A flat, this would be some form of third in generic terms. F major only contains a B flat, but F minor has an A flat, so this would be a minor third. The fourth, fifth, and octave require the terms perfect, augmented, and diminished. This is because the intervals are the same in major and minor, and therefore are considered perfect and don't need changing. Now, if we expand one of these perfect intervals, it is considered to be an augmented form of that interval. Careful when dealing with inharmonics here, as depending on how the notes are placed on the staff, it would change the type of interval that is shown. To determine this, start counting from whatever line or space the bottom note is on as 1, then count each line or space until you reach the note. So if you have F moving up to a B natural, you start on F with 1, 2, 3, 4, and then look at the distance of the interval. In F major, you would have a B flat. A B natural is a half step above, so we have expanded that interval, and this is an augmented fourth. However, if we had this instead, an F to a C flat, this would be some form of fifth. F to C is a perfect fifth, so this would be a diminished fifth as we have shrunk that space. Both an augmented fourth and diminished fifth sound the same, so be sure to count the interval first. A helpful tool for determining what the correct distance is for a specific interval is by taking the bottom note as your tonic and then filling out the major scale or natural minor scale using the formulas discussed on the literacy assignments. For a major scale, the formula is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. If we build a major scale starting on E and follow this formula, we would have the following notes. In the same way, if we were to use the formula for a natural minor scale, we would be left with this scale. The formula for a natural minor scale is whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Making a return from the first exam are the sections about staff and ledger line note identifications, clef identifications, note durations, accidental symbols identification, types of meter, and key signatures. Here I will ask you to potentially find minor keys as well, so be sure to pay attention when we get there. In fact, I've already covered this, so I'm going to now insert the video from the previous review video. On top of the staff, several things are placed. First of which are these symbols, called clefs. The clef indicates the range you should be playing in when reading. The treble clef, known as the G clef, indicates higher pitches, the notes of which being above middle C on the piano. The notes on the lines of the treble clef are E, G, B, D, F, or every good burger deserves fries. The notes on the spaces of the treble clef are F, A, C, E, spelling the word face. The bass clef, also known as the F clef, indicates lower pitches, with all of them being below middle C on the piano, without ledger lines. The notes on the lines of the bass clef are G, B, D, F, A, or good burritos don't fall apart. The spaces are A, C, E, G, or all cows eat grass. There are a number of symbols placed next to notes that will alter the pitch, known collectively as accidentals. The presence of an accidental means you must include it in the name. This is a flat. A flat lowers a pitch by half step. So if we start here with an A natural and place a flat next to it, it then becomes an A flat, which sounds 1/2 step lower than the A. This is a sharp, which raises a pitch by half step. If we begin with F sharp and place a second sharp next to it, it becomes an F double sharp and looks like this. This means you would start at the key F and go up 2/2 steps to play the F double sharp. The final accidental is trickier and is known as a natural. A natural returns the pitch to its original name. So, if we are starting with an A flat, a natural sign raises the pitch 1/2 step to A natural. Likewise, if we start with an A sharp, a natural lowers the pitch by 1/2 step, also to A natural. We move now to the division of rhythmic notation and how those changes are shown. The basis for modern music rhythmic notation is the quarter note, getting 1 beat each. This here is a whole note, which is held for 4 beats. 2 half notes fit into a whole note, each getting 2 beats. 4 quarter notes fit into a whole note, each getting 1 beat. 2 eighth notes fit into 1 quarter note, counting for half a beat, and 4 16th notes fit into a quarter note, getting a fourth of a beat. If you struggle conceptualizing this, consider how each note fills a measure in common time or 4/4 time. A whole note takes the whole measure, a half the half, quarter fills a quarter of the measure, an eighth note requires 8 to fill the entire measure, and 16 16th notes. The purpose of the flag on a note stem is to cut each note in half. As we start with a quarter note and add 1 flag, we get an eighth note, 2 flags, a 16th note, etc. The purpose of a dot is again to alter the rhythmic duration. A dot, when placed to the side of the note head, adds half of the original value. Meter is defined as the organization of rhythm and beats into measures. There are several different ways to categorize meter, but for now, let's look at duple, triple, and quadruple. These classifications take the large beat, or macro beat, and divide them into 2, 3, and 4 respectively. There is only one possible question that will ask you to include quadruple as a possibility. There is an easy way to discern the difference between the 4 main types of meter and how they are organized. There are only 4 combinations I will make you responsible for knowing: simple duple, compound duple, simple triple, and compound triple. We already know that duple divides the macro beat into 2 and that triple divides it into groups of 3. The trick is what groupings those divide into for determining simple versus compound. For simple, the macro beat groupings divide evenly into 2 microbeat parts. This will most likely be a quarter note or eighth note division in the macro beat. Let's take a look at 2/4 for an example of a simple duple. We divide first into 2 equal groups of 1 quarter note each. Those quarter notes divide equally into 2 eighth notes, which means we are in a simple duple meter. For an example of compound duple, let's look at 6/8. 6/8 time again divides into 2 big beats, but each beat here is a dotted quarter note. The dotted quarter divides evenly into 3 parts, thus making it compound. For simple triple and compound triple, the same method applies. First divide the big beats, then divide those beats evenly. In 3/2 time, for example, we divide the measure into 3 groups of half notes. Those half notes divide into 2 equal parts, so this is a simple triple. In 9/8 time, we again have a group of 3 large beats. Those beats are all dotted quarters, which divide equally into 3 eighth notes. The last large section will be key signatures. The purpose of key signatures is to tell players which notes to play in the scales being used by the composer. There are a few ways to discern key signatures for major keys. You can either do them the more musically inclined route or the more mathematically inclined. I'll start with the music route. So, for a staff looking like this, with no flats or sharps, we are in C major. To discern all other key signatures, follow these steps. First, go all the way to the right in the key signature, so you are looking for the rightmost symbol in that key signature. Here we have 4 symbols, so we go to this one here. Way to go! 1 step down. Step 2. Identify what type of symbol you're dealing with. Is this sharps or flats? Here we have sharps. Step 3 gets a little tricky, but it is the same based on which symbol you identified in step 2 for all instances. For sharps, go up to the very next line or space from that rightmost symbol, or up 1/2 step. Here, our last sharp is on D sharp, so we go to the next line, or in this case, a space, and write a note head on this space. The 4th and final step is we look back in the key signature to see if any accidentals fall on the note head's line or space. Be careful, as when there are several sharps or flats, it may be on a lower or higher note of the same name on the staff. For instance, in the treble clef, there are both 2 E's on the staff or 2 F's on the staff, so you need to check both for the accidental. If there is a sharp or flat on that note, you must include that in your key name. If not, then just include the name of the note that you drew. Here, there is no sharp on E, so we have deduced this is E major. Done. Simple as that. For flats, follow the same steps 1 through 3. So we go all the way to the right, we determine these are flat symbols that we're looking at, and now is where we get a little bit tricky. For all key signatures with more than 1 flat, find the second to last flat. If there is only 1 flat, best to just memorize that one as F major. In this case, with 5 flats, that is here. Draw your note head. Now the same last step occurs. We look in the key signature to see if there is an accidental on that line or space. If there is, like in this instance, we must include the flat in our key name. So this isn't D major, it is D flat major. Once you have found the major key signature, from your note head, go down 2 lines or spaces, counting each individually, so 1, 2, from where you are to determine the minor key. So here we are in D flat major, so we go down 1, 2, and land on B. Now we follow that final step again, and we check the key signature, and there is indeed a flat there. So this key signature is both D flat major and B flat minor. Okay, now onto the mathematical approach. If you feel confident with the first method, you may not need this one, but for those that struggle with reading music at all, this may prove to be a faster strategy. The first thing you need to do is memorize the following numbers as they correlate to major key signatures. C major is 0, indicating 0 sharps and 0 flats. For each sharp used, we will add 1 numeric value, and for each flat, we will subtract 1. C major is 0, D major is 2, indicating 2 sharps, E major is 4, F major is -1, meaning there is 1 flat in the key signature. G major is 1, A major is 3, and B major is 5. The highest possible value for practical purposes will be 7 or -7, meaning that there will only be actual key signatures used by composers up to 7 sharps or flats. Other key signatures can exist following this method, though in practicality terms, the composer would use the inharmonic key signature for actual writing, as they would require double sharps or double flats, which are a pain to read otherwise. So, to find out what major key signatures with sharps or flats in the names exist from our 7 that we have already listed, we will do just some simple math. If we want a sharp key name, we add 7. If we want a flat key name, we will subtract 7. Let's look at a few examples. If I want you to find C sharp major, you will start with our value of 0 for C major and add 7. 0 plus 7 equals 7, so there are 7 sharps in C sharp major's key signature. If I were to ask you to find G flat major, you'll start with a numeric value of 1 for G, and then subtract 7. 1 minus 7 equals -6, so there are 6 flats in the key signature. For finding minor keys, you will first find the major key signature this way, and then subtract 3 numeric values from whatever answer you got. So let's look at B flat minor. You start with B major, which has a numeric value of 5, and subtract 7. 5 minus 7 equals -2 for B flat major, indicating 2 flats. Now subtract 3 more to find B flat minor. -2 minus 3 equals -5. So B flat major has 5 flats in it. Now that that's done, I am going to start the music appreciation specific questions. JPR friends, hop on over to the time code shown on screen to begin your specific questions. The questions will be in order of how they are listed on the study guide, so no surprises here. Just keep up as I will be moving quickly. Feel free to pause or rewind as you need to. Verdi dedicated the final years of his life to the Casa di Riposo, a retirement home for musicians. Verdi was best known for writing opera, however, the piece that we examined at length was his Requiem, which is considered an oratorio. The prisoner performance of Verdi's Requiem was held at Terezin concentration camp. The Expressionist movement began in Germany. The New England Psalmody was written by William Billings. The prevailing ensemble type in America during the 19th century were bands. The king of the march was John Philip Sousa. Antonin Dvorak believed the future of American music was in Black American and Indigenous American music. Ives was an expressionist composer. Schoenberg was a serialist. Stravinsky was a primitivist. John Cage was an indeterminist, and Philip Glass is a minimalist. Charles Ives worked as an insurance salesman in addition to composing. Sergei Diaghilev discovered the works of Stravinsky at a concert in St. Petersburg. The goals of indeterminate music are the freedom of chance and the absence of deliberate choice. Now, onto the terms you'll need to know. Polytonality is performing in multiple keys at the same time. Free atonality describes Schoenberg's middle period and was seen as the emancipation of the dissonance, eliminating the constraints of resolution as dictated by the first Viennese school. 12-tone serialism describes Schoenberg and the second Viennese school's use of all 12 tones before repeating one. Indeterminism is the use of chance and choice to create music that is not specific and is unique with each performance. Sprechstimme translates to speech voice and is a manner of text delivery halfway between speaking and singing. It is used predominantly by Schoenberg and his followers. The final terms we have are manipulations of the tone row, or the iteration of all 12 tones before repeating them as used in the 12-tone system. The first iteration of the tone row is known as the prime form. From there, you can perform 3 functions on the prime form. The first is inversion. When using inversion, you invert the intervals exactly in the opposite direction. So if the line starts by moving up, the inversion would start by moving down. The second form of tone row manipulation is retrograde. When using retrograde, you begin at the end of the tone row and perform it backwards, ending with the starting note of the prime form. The final function is the most complex and is retrograde inversion. To complete this function, you begin by inverting the intervals. You then perform that inversion in retrograde. Our final term is prepared piano. Prepared piano is a method of placing foreign objects into the body and strings of a piano to create otherworldly and percussive effects. And that's everything in the study guide. Look through the lecture videos and review this study guide a couple of times while listening to the playlist found on Brightspace. Thank you for a great semester, and I look forward to reading your world music projects due next week. Good luck, and email me if you have any questions. I hope you made it all right from the theory section over to the JPR specific questions. Keep up as best you can and rewind the video as needed to get all the information. I'm going to be going pretty quickly, but I'll be in order, so let's do this. Sam Cooke got his start with the Soul Stirrers. Sam Cooke's first recorded single was Lovable and was published under the pseudonym Dale Cook. Sam Cooke's song that was performed at the March on Selma was A Change Is Gonna Come. The first concert led by Bob Marley to combat political violence in Jamaica was the Smile Jamaica concert. Bob Marley brought Edward Seaga and Michael Manley on stage during the One Love Peace concert. ABBA was Sweden's first musical export. Dennis Pop used a technique called the hit rake to get around his inability to play piano well. Max Martin has the third most #1 hits of all time, behind Paul McCartney and John Lennon. The first outlaw in country music was Willie Nelson. The group credited with combining several styles into the authentic country sound was the Carter Family. Garth Brooks led to the homogenization of country music. Notorious B.I.G. got his start by rapping ciphers in front of the Paul Robeson Theater. Who Shot Ya sparked Tupac's paranoia following the Quad Studios shooting. Hit 'Em Up was Tupac's response following his release from prison. P. Diddy pushed Biggie to write hooks and is responsible for the commercialization of hip-hop. Tupac Shakur was the biggest name to come out of the Bay Area, getting his start with Digital Underground. Queen Latifah was one of the first champions of sisterhood with songs like Ladies First and UNITY. The song that brought up controversies about hypersexualization in 2023 was WAP. Chika is one of the newest queer rappers, using their music video for Can't Explain It to recreate 90s sitcom characters in their own image. There are 4 girls in the final iteration of Blackpink. The main features of today's K-pop idol groups are genre-bending music, attractive performers, and intricate choreography. And now onto the terms and genre-specific questions. Reggae evolved from ska. Reggae's unique instrument is called the scraper. The Grand Ole Opry was responsible for emanating country music beginning in 1925. DJ Kool Herc threw the first hip-hop party for his sister's birthday. Afrika Bambaataa coined the term hip-hop. Tim Dog wrote the first big spark in the East vs. West rivalry with his song Fuck Compton. Ciphers began in Washington Square Park. Morning Dew was the anthem for the pro-democracy movement in South Korea in the 1970s. Code switching refers to being able to convey different messages to different groups within the same song. This can be found in A Change Is Gonna Come and was a particular skill of Sam Cooke's. Skenge is the unique guitar strumming pattern of reggae artists meant to mimic the sounds of gunshots echoing off the walls in Kingston's ghettos. Schlager is the Swedish term for a hit song featuring catchy lyrics and music not really trying to convey a political message. Changa is the term for the songs taught by American missionary Henry Appenzeller in Korea. These were American and British folk songs sung with Korean lyrics. And that's everything in the study guide. Look through the lecture videos and review this study guide a couple of times while listening to the playlist found on Brightspace. Thank you for a great semester. I look forward to reading your world music projects due next week. Good luck and email me if you have any questions.